everyone. It's 4 o'clock in the East. On the heels of a deeply unsettling performance from Pete Hegseth yesterday on Capitol Hill, Commander-in-Chief had a wide-open opportunity to change the tone. It's an opportunity he seems to have passed on. At Joint Base Andrews earlier today, on his way to the dignified transfer for Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan, Sergeant Michael Emmanuel Swinton, Private Isabella Gonzalez, and Sergeant Angel S. Rampersad, who were all killed fighting the war with Iran, Donald Trump was asked about the human toll of this war, about those service members and all who have been killed in action. Watch what he said.
They are indeed great heroes, actually. They said, and all of them said very strongly, we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. Well, Americans aren't against the war. A poll just came out. Americans don't want to have gasoline prices, but they're not against the war. That just came out loud and clear in a poll. Nobody wants Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Do you want Iran to have a nuclear weapon? You think it's good?
All of them said strongly, we can't let them get a nuclear weapon. There's simply no historical precedent for that, for an American president discussing the death of American soldiers on his watch as the commander-in-chief, in terms of them all the four who died saying something about Iran's nuclear program, or saying anything for that matter about the price of gas in America. And it should never ever become normal for the president to put words in their mouths, or to talk about the men and women who have died for their country in the context of polls about gas. This is again a war he started. And frankly, the numbers of those paying with their lives continues to grow. Yesterday we learned the name of another casualty in the war with Iran. It was released by the Pentagon. It is Sergeant Angel S. Rampersad, 28 years old, of Ozone Park, New York. As we mentioned earlier, she was part of today's dignified transfer. It brings the total number of U.S. service members killed to 18. Sergeant Rampersad enlisted in the U.S. Army in March of 2019. Her awards include the Army Commendation Medal, the Army Achievement Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters, the Army Good Conduct Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, and the Army Service Ribbon. And despite Donald Trump's claim that Americans' only objections to these sacrifices, like that of Sergeant Rampersad's, is the price of gas, the polls show that that is actually not true. Donald Trump could not be more wrong. The Washington Post poll finds that just 29% of Americans approve of the war with Iran, with a Politico poll out today finding that even Trump's base is souring on the conflict, with nearly 1 in 5 MAGA voters saying that the war should end no matter the impact on prices. That's an increase of 7 points since the question was asked in May. Donald Trump's callousness and the senselessness of the war driving away even Trump's own MAGA support is where we begin today with some of our favorite experts and friends. Retired U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel Amy McGrath is here. Also joining us, Paul Rieckhoff is back. He's the host of the Independent Americans podcast, the founder and CEO of Independent Veterans of America. Also joining us, Media Matters for America President Angelo Carusone is here. Amy, your thoughts today?
Well, just from your intro, I think it's really important that people know that Donald Trump does not know these American service members personally. He's just flat lying when he says that these folks, have said that the things that they've said. That's just not true. And he's implying that all members of the military who are active duty and are over there are for this war. And that is not true either, okay? And that wasn't true in Afghanistan. It wasn't true in Iraq. And for a president to say those things, again, is just a slap in the face to everybody that served.
Paul, I want to bring you in on the same question. Your thoughts to what we've seen today.
It's a somber and humbling experience, and one that I'm glad the country hasn't turned its eye from. I know it's summertime and people don't want to be focused on the news. A lot of folks are checked out, but you need to learn the stories of these young soldiers who were taken from us far too soon. I'm glad you mentioned the name of Angel Rampersad, 28 years old from here in Queens, who showed her face. That is the human cost of war. But what Trump's doing is one of the most dangerous kinds of propaganda. To say that he knows what those soldiers thought or felt, and to blur the separation that we've worked hard to create between our people and our politics. Our troops should be insulated from the politics. We worked very hard to teach this country after Vietnam to separate the war from the warriors. What he and Hegseth have tried to do in the last 24 hours, especially, is ram it back together and make it seem like he's got a MAGA army and everybody's all in and they're all signed up to just fight in his war in Iran. And that is very, very dangerous to our national security, to our recruiting, to the civil-military bond that exists in this country. And I think it's a sign of desperation, but we need to continue to call him out on it. And also, if he cares so much about our troops, where is the VA secretary? We heard yesterday from the Agriculture Secretary, we've heard from Hegseth. Why haven't we heard from Secretary Doug Collins about what he's doing to prepare the Department of Veterans Affairs for a whole new generation of wounded and a whole new generation potentially of kinds of wounds? We know we weren't prepared in the VA after the last two forever wars. They may not be prepared now. We need to hear from him on budget requests and just the fact that they exist and whether or not they'll be prepared to take care of a whole new generation of wounded.
Well, I mean, Angela, let me bring you in on that because the New York Times' Eric Schmidt, who happens to be one of the 5 New York Times journalists who was subpoenaed for his reporting on the Qatari-gifted Air Force One, has reported that there's a cover-up underway, that the Pentagon isn't even releasing information at this point about the injuries.
Yeah, and I think that we should put that into broader context because it makes it especially messed up. And in some ways, Trump putting his justification for this war into the mouths of those who can no longer speak for himself is actually quite consistent with the policy of disrespect and disregard that's in practice here. Because at the start, they haven't had a briefing from the DOD, from the podium, since May 5th. And that's bad enough, but we also know that they are closing off access to journalists. They are cracking down in Hegseth, and the Department of Defense are working with the Department of Justice to crack down on what they consider leakers and anybody going outside of the policy to share information. So on the one hand, they're suffocating the information pipeline, just basic nuts and bolts about what's happening. And then on the other hand, they're going after and stifling and targeting the very types of individuals, not just the reporters, but also the people that are getting this basic information out there. They're also attacking them. And so this notion that somehow there's this coordinated cover-up is part of the course. They are trying to control the narrative, and in this case, the way that they're going to control it is by erasing it, by pretending that it's not happening, so that they can polish up the little bits that come through. They can paper over the few cracks that we're able to see as a result of some of these leaked information coming through. That's the context that this is taking place in. And so Trump gets out there and says this thing, just like some of the other stuff he was posting last night, in the absence of all that other information, there's a real...
Good evening. This is Elder G. Now, you know I've been on this broadcast for over a year now. You know I don't pull no punches. I tell you just the way it is. I don't sugarcoat nothing. You know President Trump said when he was visiting the cemetery and it started raining, and President Trump wouldn't go to the ceremony because it was raining. And you know why he said it wasn't worth it to go to the rain? He said the soldiers that die for America, they ain't nothing but suckers and losers. You don't have to believe me. Google it yourself. President Trump made fun of a Gold Star father that had lost his son. President Trump made fun of him. President Trump made fun of a handicapped person. President Trump is no good to the core. You can't get no more evil than Donald Trump unless you Satan himself. But Donald Trump didn't do this by himself. Donald Trump did it with House leadership, Mike Johnson, Senate leadership, John Thune, Supreme Court leadership, John Roberts. These people are evil. These people do not believe in the Constitution. These people do not believe in freedom. Only for the prejudiced white people they believe in freedom. The Bible tells us that in these last days, and Jesus tells you that he came in the last days. He came down through 14 generations. And he died on Calvary for you and me that believe in him and believe in his name. We spend trillions and trillions of dollars that given to Elon Musk and all of the Jeff Bezos and all these people to go out into space. We done spent trillions and trillions of dollars, and the space program, there is no human being that have ever left Earth lower orbit. Think about this. We done spent trillions of dollars that ain't gonna never benefit us. They said even if it was possible, it would take on a round trip to Mars, you would probably die before you come back. They're just wasting our money and laughing in our face. Tell me, anybody that's making $50,000 or $60,000 a year, all those trillions of dollars that they use to try to go to Mars and for Elon Musk them to blow up spaceships. Every time a spaceship blow up, that's millions and millions of dollars that just went down the drain. But ask your government. I Googled it today. I asked Google, is there any nuclear bomb shelters in Alabama for the public? And the answer is no. They are making no provision for us. If we get attacked, our government have made no provision for us to go. But they can let Elon Musk blow up rocket after rocket after rocket. I'm talking about trillions of dollars. Tell me how much blowing up trillions of dollars of rocket is going to help you, America. Those no good 77 million people that voted for this man to become a dictator. All those trillions and trillions of dollars that they blown up on those rockets, I'm talking about taxpayer dollars. Tell me how it benefited you. Did they build any nuclear bomb shelters for you? Did they make sure that you got food on your table? Did they make sure that you can go to the dentist if you need dental work, or you can go to the eye doctor if you need eye work, or are you sick with cancer? But they can blow up almost every day multi-million dollar worth of rockets. And you done work 40 or 50 years and you can't take care of yourself no more. But Mike Johnson came on national TV and said Jesus Christ came to him personally and told him that he needed to pass that big, beautiful bill. Jesus told Mike Johnson to pass that big, beautiful bill where he cut SNAP. That's a program that help people that's poor, that can't buy food. The cut grants to minority schools so students can go that got good education, but they just don't have the money. Jesus told him to cut that. Jesus told him to cut free lunches at the schools. Jesus told him. And by the way, your father or your mother or your grandfather or your grandmother, he told them, you done worked sometimes 40, 50, sometimes 60 years. He told him to cut Medicaid. Throw them old no good people. Ain't no use for them. Just throw them off the cliff. Oh, but let me tell you what those no good Republicans said you could do. You could spend $45 million for Donald Trump's birthday, 79th birthday party. You can tear down part of the White House, and in order for you to rebuild it, will cost $230 million just to put it back like it was. This thing, Donald Trump took a bulldozer while people starving, while people sick, while people that's going hungry. He put a bulldozer to the White House to replace it will cost at least $230 million. And then he want to put in its place a $400 million ballroom. And he want to build golf courses. And he want to paint a pool. Reflection pool. Wasn't nothing wrong with it. Look how long that pool been there. He spent $16 million just to paint over the pool that didn't even last a month. $16 million, and people are starving and people are sick. All you doing is trying to start a civil war. That's all you doing, because people are not going to sit back, and people are not going to keep on starving. People are not going to keep on being sick. Why these president people is just wasting our money, just pouring it down the drain. We sick of it. We ain't going to take it no more. We are not going to take it anymore. But 77 million people, he still got 90% of MAGA support. Anybody that support Donald Trump with all the evil Donald Trump is doing to the Constitution and doing to the people that's not white. Half of this country is not white. I'm sick of it. Over 90 million people stayed at home. Just think about this. Just think how evil the American people is. People are starving. Can't afford to buy homes. Can't go to the doctor. But you can spend $45 million on a one-man birthday party. You know how many homes $45 million could have built? I'm talking about cash. You know how many homes? You know how many hungry people could have been fed? You know how many sick people could have went to the doctor? You spent $45 million on one man that hate minorities and hate women. You spent $45 million. And then you turn around and you spent $60 million to have a UFC fight at the White House. You spent $60 million of our money while we starving, while we suffering. You spent $60 million for prejudiced white people to have a UFC fight. I've never seen so much sickness in my life. There's nothing can come but war. You're taking our money and you are funding prejudiced people to try to overthrow our rights. Something is very wrong here. Something is very wrong. It's some madness going on in this country. The United States Senate had a chance to stop this war. But the United States Senate Republicans, they are so much of a coward. They let a man with dementia lead our American citizens into war, and our American citizens are dying. We're spending over $1 billion a day, but you can cut Medicaid. You can cut free lunches. You can cut grants for people to get educations. While you lavish all this luxury upon this evil, prejudiced man. You know that's going to bring a civil war. When the law is not fair to one person under the Constitution, the law is not fair to anyone. I don't trust my federal government that's led by President Trump and Mike Johnson and John Thune and John Roberts in the Supreme Court. Those leaders are not for black and brown people, and those leaders are not for women. And they definitely not for freedom. They for tyranny.
This very technology. So to me, it's reckless, totally reckless.
I want to just read a little bit more from the Wall Street Journal's reporting on this to you, Paul. The Journal reports this: Saudi officials have long argued that the deal is necessary to enable the kingdom to develop a nuclear industry, which would draw on unproven uranium ore deposits to try to meet energy needs at home. That would free up more of its oil production for export and boost revenues. Saudi Arabia insists its intentions are peaceful, although Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto leader of the country, said in 2018 that if Iran ever develops a nuclear weapon, his nation will follow suit. Saudi Arabia is now under threat by Iran, in part because of our conduct in the region. This has nothing to do with America First, and I know that, again, along with being post-fact, we're post-holding Trump to his own commitments and political promises over a decade on the world stage, but this is just pickled in 10 years of cozy business alliances between Jared Kushner and bin Salman, bizarre carrying of the official state messaging of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, not the United States intelligence services, when it comes to the slaughter of Jamal Khashoggi. And this is, again, another nuclear program in a region that American service members are currently risking their lives trying to stabilize. Your thoughts?
This is the most corrupt administration we've ever seen. I feel like every single deal should have a public disclosure of conflicts of interest because we have no idea how deep the ties go. But I think it's even something bigger. I think it's the best indication that Trump has lost the war in Iran because the Saudis don't trust Trump to take out Iran's nuke capacity, so they have to build their own. This is an indictment of his war. This says that we're worried that Trump can't take it out. We're worried the Americans are going to leave, and we need a backup plan. And their backup plan is to develop their own nukes because, I would hope that at least the next generation would say no to another war in the Middle East if that came to the fore. But this one is going south. The likelihood is high that eventually, if not Trump, the next president will pull the U.S. out of the Middle East. The Iranian threat will not be neutralized, and this is the insurance policy for the Saudis.
Angelo, the U.S.-Saudi alliance is deeply unpopular with all corners of the American people, especially and including the MAGA Republic.
Did you hear that? Trump is going to help fund Saudi Arabia, the one that gave over $2 billion to his son-in-law. He's going to let Saudi Arabia and help Saudi Arabia develop a nuclear weapon.
Actually, I fear that the policy of the United States now, at least under Trump, is actually proliferation. And because that's what this is. And I think once that sort of begins to percolate in parts of the MAGA media, right-wing media, they'll be more critical of it. Then they'll tie into the larger critique of Trump sort of bumbling around on foreign policy. Because it's worth noting that this takeaway is weaker than anything that Biden ever did. Part of the reason why the Biden administration didn't engage in a similar deal, because they were negotiating with them, is that they had conditions that Trump stripped away. He stripped away conditions without anything in return. That's why this deal got executed. And then to put a bow on it, he's basically he enlisted the dead today to justify a policy that he was contradicting simultaneously. And his own Secretary of State in 2018 or 2019 sponsored legislation that said that no one can engage in a policy just like this one today unless Congress affirmatively approved it because of the significant ramifications and implications there are. So do I think they're going to revolt over this? Probably not. It's too complicated, too hard to see. It's a really long-term trend. Do I think some of those cracks will emerge? Yeah, and that's really what this is about in the long term. It's the cumulative effect of all these little things chipping away at sort of the mythology that they gravitated toward in the first place to support Trump.
Yeah, I view this as like a seed that may not sort of bloom until the Republican primary of 2028, when Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance seek to put some distance between themselves in coming out in different positions on it. Because, trust me, I think U.S.-Saudi relationship is really complicated in the minds of all American voters. Amy, Paul, and Angelo, these are really serious times. I appreciate all of your serious, thoughtful contributions today. Thank you so much for starting me off. After the break, Todd Blanche has been
The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is the same Crown Prince that ordered Khashoggi in the embassy to be cut into pieces and put into a suitcase. This is the same government that Donald Trump is going to support and help fund them developing a nuclear weapon. It's a sad day in America that so many evil people in the United States, these prejudiced white people, that there is so much hate in this country right now. I just don't see how you're going to avoid a civil war. I just don't see it.